Environmental Education Center was established in 1985 to provide environmental education opportunities for thousands of students and visitors each year. The center is located just outside Jimthorpe and is one of only about 24 licensed wildlife rehabilitation centers throughout Pennsylvania. The goal of wildlife rehabilitation is to return injured and orphaned animals to the wild. When this is not possible, non-releasable animals are sometimes used in education, as is the case today. Let's give a warm welcome and invite the staff to introduce themselves.
My name is Susan Gallagher. I'm here from Carbon County Environmental Ed Center. I brought along some of our newsletters if you'd like to know a little bit more about who we are, what we do, where we come from. We're about 40 minutes away from here. My coworker Franklin Klock is here also. He is our bald eagle handler. Get it? Bald. The jokes don't get a lot better, so I don't know what to expect. And we did bring 2 live, injured, non-releasable eagles with us today as well. But I want to start with a little story. I want to start with a story of the magic box on a regular basis. A member of the public will find an animal in distress. It's either injured or it's orphaned or there's something wrong with it. They'll take it, they'll put it in a box. And it's usually something really exotic or really unusual. An eagle, a monkey, a fisher, a rattlesnake, a peregrine falcon. They put it in a box. They bring it to our center. And by the time they get to us, we open it up, and like magic, it's become a pigeon, a squirrel, a kestrel, a really common animal. There are a tremendous number of these magic boxes floating around out there. Doesn't matter who you are. I once saw a fish commission deputy put a rattlesnake into a magic coffee can, bring it to our center, and out came a garter snake. So it doesn't matter who you are, you're not immune to the workings of the magic box. We see this magic box all the time, and in 2001, Pennsylvania Game Commission regional office in Dallas called us, and they said, we have an injured golden eagle that our officers would like to bring to your center. And we said, oh, sure you do. And then to ourselves, we laughed and said, oh, they have a magic box. Because I can count on this many fingers after 25, 30 years of wildlife rehabilitation, how many golden eagles we had seen come through at our center. The lesson to the magic box story is never know what to expect. Those officers did, in fact, come to our center with an injured golden eagle, an immature golden eagle. So I know you came here today expecting bald eagles, but we're going to start our program actually with our injured golden eagle and let you get the chance to meet her as well. The bald eagle always does sort of tend to steal the show, but golden eagles are much less common in Pennsylvania. They do not nest behind us. They only move in migration. So unless you're lucky enough, and you can improve those chances by coming to a place like this, later in the season. But both of our eagles are on public display. You're welcome to come and visit our center. There's e-letters you can learn how to get to us. But if you come and visit, you see she doesn't make a sound when she's out in the news, when she's out in the But here, she shuts up.
And just like your children, when you ask them to be quiet, you get to be quiet. It gets even louder.
So like the canary in the coal mine that the miners would take down with them into the mine shaft, they would watch that bird, whether it was a canary or probably some other more common species. And if that bird started to show any signs of distress, being it not having the ability to breathe or falling over and dying, that was like an early warning signal to those miners that there was something wrong with the air quality. And if you don't fix it, get out of the mine shaft, ventilate the air, whatever you got to do, whatever was affecting that bird at that moment was eventually going to affect you as well. And that's the whole canary in the coal mine theory. That's how it works. If we're watching eagle populations out in the wild, or any bird, and you see their numbers start to decline, that's really sort of an early warning system that tells you, hey, these guys out there on the top of the food chain are going to be affected by things that disturb your soil quality, your water quality, your air quality. And if you don't address those things now, sooner or later, So we look at the populations of predators, birds of prey especially, in the wild, to judge the health of our ecosystem. When we bring out the bald eagle, we'll talk about the successes that we've had in cleaning up our act and in cleaning up our ecosystem that have allowed bald eagle numbers to rise. Golden eagle numbers, no. These guys in the eastern half of the United States are fairly uncommon visitors to our area. Like I said, passive human migration, you don't often get to see them. Out west, they're much more common. But there are lessons to learn from these birds out west as well. If you do a little reading, do a little research on a place called Altamont Pass out in California. It's a massive wind energy facility, and we all know we need alternatives to our fossil fuels, but that wind energy facility was sited so poorly, right in the middle of raptor migration corridor, that it was killing at a high point anywhere from 75 to 110 golden eagles per year. So there's a lesson there in what we're doing here now in the east, putting our wind turbines up on ridge tops. Are we looking at the smartest places, and have we learned from past mistakes how not to harm wildlife? In the case here in the east, it's not so much eagles that we have to worry about as bats. Those turbines can take a tremendous toll on our bat populations, who already suffer because of things like white-nose syndrome. So one of the take-home lessons there is that we do every day, and all these little cameras, and I've got one myself, I'm not trying to be self-righteous, the little cameras and the little folks that are taking the pictures, powered by energy. Where does that energy come from? Are we making the smartest choices? Are we conserving what we have? And what are the things that we do in our everyday life that translate into good or bad for wildlife? And Franklin and I were talking on the way out here. I feel like you're preaching to the choir, because you folks are all, you're here to talk about, you obviously care, you brought your kids, you want to teach those guys some good conservation lessons while we're at it too. But just before the program, we picked up 6 of these things. I hate these things. Oh, do I hate these things. I've been doing environmental ed for almost 30 years. If I had $1 for every one of these that I picked up, I'd just retire. I wouldn't have to work. The little straw wrappers from your juice boxes. These are the kind of things we have control over, things that we do every day or don't do every day that can have an impact on wildlife. Everybody lives downstream. Where are these things going to end up? In the Schuylkill River somewhere, maybe causing problems for wildlife. So, yeah, preaching to the choir, we're probably all a little more conservation-minded. But every decision we make, going to the grocery store, things that we decide to buy for dinner, things that we decide to send our kids to school with in their lunch boxes, all those things can have an impact on the environment around us and on wildlife as well. So we've got to remember that. We're part of this equation too. I'm going to give her a little chance to come out and talk a little bit, because she's back there and Franklin's sort of keeping her back so that you can hear me. But if you have questions for Franklin, or if you want to get a closer look at her, I'll let her bring them up. One thing, when she first came into our center, I said she was a first-year bird. Really classic golden eagle identification. This little big white patch on the tail, and the little white patches underneath the wings. Nobody else is going to look like that. So it's tough sometimes when you're up at those lookouts and the birds are zooming past and you're not getting a chance to really focus on and see something. Look for that big white patch. Nobody else is going to have that other than golden eagle. Of course, as an adult, and Franklin will turn her around in a second so that you can see what she looks like from behind as well. It's more of a chocolate brown, finely banded tail. So immature or adult golden eagles are all going to have those golden hackles, those golden head feathers. They're going to be big birds. They're going to hold their wings up just a little bit off the horizontal. Not as much as a turkey vulture, not as flat as a bald eagle, but they're going to be big birds who will be moving through here later on in the year. It's not quite the golden eagle migration.
My take on this eagle is as the handler more so than the research person or the rehabilitator. I started at the center, way back in, I guess, 93 or 94 as a volunteer. And we had a pretty good base of volunteers. But as time went on, it seemed like all of our male volunteers dwindled and all of our male staff dwindled. And I was pretty much the only one left. So when we got this eagle in, it became my job to handle her for rehab. She had a wing injury, and just like if you've ever had a knee operation like I have grown to both love and hate my knee rehab person because they make you do things that hurt a lot. They make you bend that knee when you think it's going to break in half. So my job was to hold this bird while Susan manipulated the wing so it could heal and stretch the muscles and get it to work. And the way you hold a golden eagle is by placing the bird's chest back against your chest and controlling the feet in the front. The wings aren't a big deal. The beak, even though it's kind of scary, they're not really biters. This is the business end down here. So if you control the feet, you control the bird. So I had to hold the bird against my chest while Susan moved its wings in and out. And I mean, her head was right here, and you kind of learn to deal with that. The first couple times I held the bird like this because I thought he was going to peck my eyes out. We learned that's not how it works. Until one day, as this bird's health improved and strength came back up because she'd been on the ground for a while and hadn't eaten and muscle mass was missing, she decided that she didn't want to be held by me like that anymore and took these little skinny little bird legs and pushed them away from her, and I realized that I was now not as strong as this bird. And it really puts things in perspective for me. And for probably a couple weeks after that, every time I had to handle this bird, I had an anxiety attack afterwards. I'm just thankful that I was alive. And put her back in her cage and turn my back on everybody and hit my inhaler, and I was okay. But the mass and the power of these birds is, you can't even imagine, just being this close and seeing up close, you can't imagine what it's like to be on the receiving end of the golden eagle. I mean, in the wild, folks, these birds will take prey the size of a mountain goat or a doll sheep on the side of the mountain. Now, they're not going to fly away with it. They will knock it down and then retrieve it from the ground after it's been killed from the fall. But, I mean, at 11 or 12 pounds, or even at 9 or 10 pounds and 100 miles an hour, that's a 10-pound cannonball coming in there, you know? And they're just amazing, amazing creatures. She's a big girl, and I say that in the nicest way. Aren't you? Anyway, because she's such a large bird, her feet are just huge. And I mean, just look at your own hand. Her toes and talons are as long as your fingers. So think about what that's going to do and what that's going to be able to hang on. So that's my take on working with them. She is a little like working with a kid because she has good days and bad days, as do I. You know, there are just days that you don't want to go to work. You just don't feel like it. So today she's being nice to us, and she's a little vocal, but at least she's sitting.
If you notice the feathers on top of her head and down her neck are kind of raised up a little bit, those are her hackles, so if you ever hear me phrase, you have your hackles up.
Photo op. So get your cameras ready. First of all, Susan talked about that white patch. So there's that white patch. And then,
Let's get stand here so they can actually
I want to know. There you go, guys. Hey. Alright. Now I no feeling left in my hand, so I'm going to put that.
Time out on hikes, people don't like to sort of temper their enthusiasm in any way. So when a kid picks up a feather, I have a really hard time saying that's good. But for eagles especially, we are not allowed to have any eagle feathers for use in education. We have permits that allow us to keep some of the parts of some of the animals that come in that don't survive. So I've got a red-tailed tail here I'll talk about in a second. I've got some talons. Our eagle skulls and our eagle eggs are weapons. We're not allowed to possess any of that. If our eagles molt any feathers, if either of our eagles die in captivity, we've got to pack them up and send them to a place called the Golden Eagle Repository outside Boulder, Colorado. And from there, they're doled out and given to Native Americans who would use them then for their religious ceremonies or whatever ceremonies. So we're not allowed to possess any eagle feathers. So we just mention that so that if you do find any floating, we tend to just leave them. But some little bird's going to probably pick them up and throw them in their nest, or a little mouse or something like that. So it's all part of the environment, part of nature. Then will be put to good use. But the tail that I brought along was kind of unique. And just to give you an idea, watch these birds, both these eagles we've had since 2001, we've had them for 13 years now. They were both first-year birds when they came in, so we've had the chance to watch them go through that transformation from the immature plumage, the immature feathers, to the adult. And one of the cool things is immature feathers, flight feathers and tail feathers on these birds tend to be longer and larger than on the adults. It's almost like training wheels on a bicycle. So if you ever see pictures of immature, especially the bald eagles, you'll see they look a lot bigger than their parents. And part of that is because their feathers are longer. So this was a red tail who came in and was in a mold at the time he passed away, where he still had some of the immature feathers, but was growing in some of the adults. And you can see that those immature feathers about a half-inch longer than the adult feathers. So some of the first people to spot immature bald eagles actually thought that they were a separate species, different species from the adults, because they were so her vein drooped just a little bit. There was something broken there, but probably just a muscle or nerve damage. And was missing one tip of her toe and one talon on one foot. So any of those single injuries by itself, you notice I'm saying she. Now with the golden eagle, it was fairly easy to tell. She's big. Notice how she's big, even for a golden eagle. For the bald eagle, it was a little tough, and this bird actually was in captivity for about 10 years, being referred to as a male. If we would talk about the bald eagle and say, well, he has a program, he has a vet appointment, and you go down and rake his cage, blah, blah, blah. Well, about 10 years after that, one of our neighbors came rushing into our environmental center first thing in the morning, and he said, you just took a walk outside to visit your birds, and your eagle is frozen to the ground. We thought, okay, it was February.
That's the same look I had on my face.
Ran outside, Franklin got the keys, he was trying to get into the back of the enclosure, and I'd gone around to the front of the enclosure to take a look. And there the bird was, sitting down on the ground, screaming its head off, and as soon as it stood up, I can't tell you what I said. 10 years old, the male, and here we find out it was female. So, a couple of injuries, but for about a month, she brooded over that egg. So that's it. I made Franklin. I was raised Catholic, and even though it wasn't fertile. So Franklin did that, and she has since laid an egg last
She got herself caught.
There we go.
Sorry about that, a little undignified, guys, but what she's doing now is she just really got herself kind of all up in a lather. You can see her hackles up like we were talking about, but the holding the wings out now is to let air get underneath those feathers and help them cool off. She just, that was like running a 100-yard dash for her just now. So she just, once she calms down and cools off a little bit, she'll hold. Susan didn't give you the whole story about the day we discovered that she was a female. See, these birds do tend to mate for life. They will pair bond and they stay attached to a specific mate. Because she never had one, she had to attach herself to someone. Because I was the one that handled her and worked with her and did all this stuff. Well, that someone happened to be me. So the day the event, we call it the event, the day that happened and I had to break in through the back, we had an ice storm that night, so the lock was frozen, and as Susan was outside uttering expletives, I was trying to bust in. I had no idea what was going on. So I finally got the lock open and kicked the door open. And when I stepped into that enclosure, that's when she leapt to her feet and exposed the egg. But she leapt to her feet to attack me. Came at me at ground level, talons out, weapons out, and just about caught me in both of my legs with both of her feet. And it was not because she was angry at me, it was just to protect her egg, but the screaming that she did was as like a mother on a birthing table, screaming at her husband saying, "You did this to me!" I had no idea what was going on because I hadn't seen anything. So she just threw herself at me. And even me, even though that I'm the one that I'm blessed that she has chosen, I think, I couldn't get near her for that whole time when she was taking care of that egg. I mean, basically to feed her, open the door and throw some food in and close the door. It's all yours. She would leap to her feet and definitely get between you and that egg, no matter what.
Identify.
Yeah, not a bald eagle. Not at all.
So it just goes to show you can't believe everything you see on television, which is a good reminder for that YouTube video of the eagle swooping down and picking up the baby.
Biologists have discussed this and did some experimenting, and through, of course, hundreds of years of watching these birds hunt. This bird at 10.5 pounds is probably capable, if it were a healthy bird, of carrying comfortably a third of its body weight. With a little bit of struggle, maybe half of its body weight. That's 5 pounds. They're not going to fly away with your dog, or even maybe not even your Pomeranian. And we get these questions. You know, we honestly, folks, we get questions like this at work. The phone will ring, and a woman will say, "I saw a bald eagle flying over my backyard." And I say, "Oh, that's really exciting." She goes, "No, I want to let my kids out." Well, go ahead and give them binoculars while you're at it, but don't worry about it, you know. No. But people really just don't know because of things. You've seen the video of the hawk or the semi-osprey picking up the child and dropping it. Well, Google it. It's totally fake, but Google it. It's a fun video to watch.
Any questions about the ball or the goal? Well, questions? Right choice. There's a question back there, nice and loud.
Oh, I was just wondering what the average lifespan is.
About 30 years, probably longer in captivity because they're well cared. She sniffles and she's after that. You want to make sure. Yes, back there.
I didn't hear how she got injured.
She got hit by a car, and it happens because sometimes it's easier to hunt by a roadside than it is in the woods. So they'll come down and look for something easy. If a deer is laying on the road and it's already dead, that's a lot easier for them to feed on. If another bird has caught a fish, like an osprey, they'll come and steal it, because that's a lot easier too. And something else to consider, if you're using lead shot when you're hunting, especially near water, if you're leaving lead sinkers or anything like that out when you're fishing, they only need to ingest a small amount of lead for it to affect them neurologically. And we have seen lead poisoning in birds of prey, and it's something that's difficult to treat, and it's something sad because you know it's so preventable. You know, if we just keep our act clean when it comes to these birds, there's much less chance of them ingesting lead. Being shot, our golden eagle was shot, and she actually had some lead pellets in her muscle. That doesn't worry about taking those out. You can leave those in. It's the lead that they ingest. Because remember, birds have like a grinding stomach, that gizzard, and it just grinds those lead pellets till the lead's in the bloodstream, and then it's like a kid eating lead paint chips off the wall. It's not good. They also suspect that there's something in bald eagles called, don't let her hear this, dumb baby syndrome, where some of the young hatch and they're just not quite right in the head, and we think that may have been part of her problem too, because she was never quite whole there.
Let me throw something else out there, just especially for the older folks, not the older folks, but the folks that are driving. We've noticed something, and it's kind of an unofficial study that we've done. We get a lot of birds. We literally see hundreds of animals a year come through our front door. And when it comes to car strikes, overwhelmingly, these animals are hit on the left side of their body. Now, when you think about the mechanics of it, when we drive on the right side of the road. So an animal that shoots into the road from the right side has zero chance of escaping your car. If they come from the left, they have a whole 18 feet of lane on that side to kind of go, whoa, there's something there, and maybe not get hit. But there's her, as an example, injury to the left wing, injury to the left eye. Now, her toe was probably broken after the fact, so that kind of happened. But I'd say 90% of the birds that come into our center, thank you for that, had a math teacher that would hit you with a math book. And it felt a lot like years of the internet. We found a couple of environmental centers and nature centers and rehab centers in Great Britain. And guess what? Their birds are hit on the right because they drive on the other side of the road. So there's some truth and there's some fact to this. So as you're driving, be aware of animals immediately to your right because they're not very smart. They see that thing and their brain says, go get it and eat it. And they take off. That's why you see red tails sitting along Route 80 in the median, looking for the things that are running. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that we've discovered that it's our fault, but we don't mean to do it. It's just one of those things that we do. It is a definite truth in that. little tidbit that I thought I'd throw out there for you to know. Question?
How fast do they fly?
Ah,
I don't know. You know. I don't know.
I'm going to point at a random person, and everybody's trying to crawl into their own pockets. What's the fastest animal on the planet? Cheetah, 65 miles an hour. No. We all know that peregrine falcons, you've learned it here, have been clocked at speeds of over 250 miles an hour. One of the most recent facts that I learned about bald eagles, during migration, they can soar in winds of 100 miles an hour. These guys are probably maxed out at about 140 to 170, diving during migration. Now, you want to know how they migrate that fast and that far? That's how. Take the elevator up on a thermal and dive off the top of it. And you just ride that escalator down until you hit the next one. So yeah, they're pretty quick. They really, really are. So technically, I'll give you credit, because cheetahs are the fastest animal on the planet. But get up in the air, and all kinds of birds. Sparrows are faster than cheetahs. Think about it. Think about it. So there you go.
If you see these guys up in the north, look out, wings flat out. Think even, eagle. You see vultures? V, vulture. And they're rocking back and forth. Bald eagles will never do that. Their wings are always out flat. Golden eagles up just a little bit, but bald eagles out flat. And this cutout is a little bit misleading because on a golden eagle and on a vulture, you'll see this kind of, almost like this kind of dip shape here. On eagles, it's straight across. It's like Franklin says, it almost looks like there's a board.
It's like a 2x12, just
flat.
cruising.
So they're a little bit easier to identify. Other questions? I saw another hand up somewhere. Yeah.
Is there any difference in the vocalization from an immature eagle to an adult?
I don't know technically if I can answer that. I can tell you that the immature eagles that I've encountered have been much more vocal than the adults. And they also make, I call it baby talk, that adults don't make, and you can probably do it better than I can.
Yeah, they kind of honk. They do. They'll gate like a. You've seen the beautiful, cute little pictures of bluebirds and robins in a nest, and all the babies have their mouths open. Well, these guys do it too, except it comes with a low. It doesn't sound very good, but that's basically what it is. And that's one of the reasons that we think that maybe I might be the parental unit to this animal, because when I go in, I still, from time to time, get that. And it's basically feed me. I know you have food and I want it. So, yeah. But we don't see it too much. Now keep in mind, the reason we may see that with her is because there is a little bit of stunted brain growth. We think that a lot of her activity is still immature behavior, even though she's much older.
Yes, your question? She is 14. She came in 2001 and she was a first-year bird. So we got to see the really cool transformation from immature, sort of mottled chocolate brown, to adult. And one of the really neat things we noticed was that it wasn't just a matter of tail feathers falling out and growing in more white every year, but some of the feathers that were white and mottled with brown actually faded. The individual feather changed over time and became whiter. And we never knew that, but getting to see one so up close, we got to learn. Yeah. What's her name? She doesn't know her name. She doesn't come when we call her. But her name is Renshaw. And she's named after a volunteer of ours. He also used to volunteer in Rock Mountain. His name was Fred Wallace. His middle name was Renshaw. Frederick Renshaw Wallace. When she came in, she was crazy. She would never sit and tolerate this. She didn't know how to go for a ride in a car. She wasn't used to having me gesticulating next to her all the time, having all these cameras on her. So that volunteer very slowly got her used to all this, and he passed away, unfortunately, right in the middle of an eagle program, had the golden eagle on his arm, and died of a massive heart attack. He just hit the ground, and the bird sat there. You know, that's a testament to how much time and effort he put in to training them. So we've named her his honor, Renshaw. We feed them dead rats and dead mice, which they would eat a lot of in the wild. They eat a lot of carrion. She gets fish once in a while, just to sort of shake things up. Maybe a roadkill snake every once in a while, or some fishermen will sometimes bring us live fish to eat her as well. She eats 6 days a week, 1 day a week, no food. Because in the wild, sometimes they'll eat and then just sit. If it's very cold, if it's very hot, birds of prey tend not to hunt very much. dead in the eagle pen and they don't like it. So we got to be a little careful. But yeah, if it's dead, that's what you should eat. Yes. To eat in the wild, bald eagles like to eat fish, probably more so than. Other questions? Do they like to eat trout or salmon?
Yes. If it swims, yes.
Other questions? Yes.
What's the other egg for?
The other egg, very astute observation.
You hold the remote at your house, don't you? What's on the next channel?
This is a replica of a bald eagle egg. This is a replica of a golden eagle egg, just so that you can sort of see the difference. We also have replica bald eagle skull, and we have replica golden eagle skull. So you can see, no, I'm wrong. Replica,
No, you were right.
yeah, I'm right. Bald eagle and the color through me, and golden eagle. So you can see that they are fairly different from each other. We also have, and again, technically we're not allowed, don't have any sort of permits to keep eagle parts even for education, but we have some replica talons down here. So we've got bald eagle, we've got golden eagle, and then we've got something, of course, not native to North America, but cool nonetheless, a replica harpy eagle talon, aka the monkey-eating eagle. So you can get an idea that they do get quite a bit bigger.
Twice the size. So we don't have one.
And she weighs what, like 9.5?
Yeah, she's like 9. She's kind of on a downward slide. They do gain and lose weight a little bit. We don't regulate their weight, but she definitely is a little bit lighter right now. Susan, I wanted to mention something too. Something I noticed or I read. Bald eagles often don't eat when it's really, really hot, and part of the reason is fish, when it's really, really hot, tend to go deeper into the lakes and streams, and it's harder for them to get them. See, these birds don't dive into the water like ospreys do. They take fish off the surface. Some young eagles, have even been known to drown because they'll submerge themselves, and if they're not close enough to a shore to row themselves out of the water, they'll drown because they're not really good at flying off the surface like osprey are. Osprey have those great M-shaped wings that they can kind of pull up and get lift off the water, but these guys aren't built like that. So yeah, that has a lot to do with the food that they eat as well.
We've also got an osprey who came to our center who didn't survive, and we saved the foot for a couple of reasons. First of all, think catching a fish. It's like trying to hang on to a bar of soap in the shower when your hands are wet. It's like a sandpaper-like skin on the bottom of the foot. Osprey, if people bring us an injured osprey, we don't even have to open the box. We know from the smell. Osprey have a very distinctive smell. Someone who was sitting over here at the last program we did at 11 o'clock said, have your eagles been sprayed by a skunk? Because I got a whiff every time they would flap their wings. They haven't been skunked. We get a lot of horned owls in that have been skunked because they don't have a very good sense of smell, so they'll actually prey on skunks in the wild. But eagles as well, bald eagles in particular, have a very distinct odor. And if you're over there, you might be able to smell it.
Her breath smells a little like fuel oil. And when we first got her in and started handling her, I thought it was an odd smell. And it turns out that it has a lot to do with the fish that they eat. It's not so much now, but when we do feed fish, we definitely get that. And we're nose to nose a lot, so she definitely has fish breath. And she does kind of have like a pungent, oily smell. Yes. Susan, I'm going to give them a photo op and then put her back. So many photos. One more time. There's all right. She doesn't fly very well. She can't fully extend this wing and she can't fully retract it. So I don't know if you noticed when she baited or jumped, she always went to the left. She does tend to turn to the left all the time because the right wing works fine and pushes really hard, and the left wing doesn't move as much air, so she turns.
Get your left knee.
It's also to get away from me because I'm on her right. And it works out well because she doesn't see very well out of her left side. Falconers traditionally hold birds on their left hand so that they have the right hand to work with. If she was blind on her right side, it would be difficult because she would constantly try to turn around and see me, and it wouldn't work out very well. So it does kind of work for us. You do get injured on the left side. All right. With that, she will make you flutter up.
So come for a visit us at Department County Environmental Center. Come back to Hawk Mountain.